Okay, prep test 28, game 2, setup. This is probably one of my favorite games. I really like the setup, and it's one of my favorite game types, which is a grid game. All right, to prepare for fieldwork, exactly 4 different researchers, G, H, L, and P, will learn at least one. So if we have a group, say group A, that has some relationship to minimum 1 of group B, then that usually works really well as a grid. Okay. So here we would have our researchers on one axis and our languages on the other, and I'm going to use the lowercase letters for the researchers because that's what we actually see in our, that's what we actually see in the blurb, right? There's lowercase letters for the researchers, and then of course the languages are going to be starting with uppercase letters, as they do. Okay, proper nouns. Go. Okay. And there's our little 4x4 grid. So if someone learns a language, then we're going to put a check mark in that box where they overlap. So for the researchers, they're going to learn at least 1 and at most 3 languages. So for the columns, that's going to be the check marks is the number of, how many check marks would be the number of languages they learn. So we should see 1 to 3 check marks in each column. Exactly 1 researcher learns Rundi, 1. Exactly 2 researchers learn Swahili, 2. Exactly 2 researchers learn Tigrinya, and exactly 3 researchers learn Yoruba. Or Yoruba. Okay. Any language learned by the linguist or paleontologist, so that's an if, right? Any indicates a sufficient condition. So if a language is learned by the linguist or the paleontologist, and it is not learned by the geologist. If it is learned by the geologist, then it can't be learned by the linguist, and it can't be learned by the paleontologist. So neither L nor P is going to learn that language. So any language learned by the geologist, if the geologist learns a language, then it must be learned by the historian. If the historian doesn't learn it, then neither does the geologist. So really liking that we get, if the geologist learns a language, we know what relationship all the other players have to that language, right? So if we put a check mark in G for a language, then we have to put X's in L and P and a check mark in H. So any language learned by the geologist is going to have to be learned by exactly 2 of the researchers total, right? So G and H would learn that language and L and P would not. So G can't learn R because whatever language G learns, in total, we're going to have 2 people learning it. So the only languages that G could potentially learn are S and T. Okay, so we can make that deduction up front. So G cannot learn R. G also cannot learn Y. G learns either S, T, or both, right? It's inclusive of the possibility of both. And because G doesn't learn Y, and we know that Y is learned by 3 of the researchers, that means everybody else learns Y. So those deductions are what make this game one of my favorites, because I think it's kind of cool, the logic of that. How that fits. Okay. Right. Let me know if you have any further questions.